An average kitchen remodel in the US costs nearly $40,000. Yet most of that money is poured into exactly the things that make daily cooking more inconvenient rather than more pleasant. You'd be awesome if you subscribed and liked this video. 1. Cooktop on the island, forgetting the range hood. Nothing ruins an open-plan kitchen more than a huge, bulky steel hood hanging from the ceiling, directly in the line of sight from the living room to the kitchen. Because of this unpleasant sight, many homeowners move their stovetops to a kitchen island and switch to under-counter range hoods, with the small duct going up behind the stovetop instead of hanging overhead. It sounds like a clever move, but the physics of smoke don't always align with aesthetics. Hot smoke tends to rise straight up to the ceiling, while under-counter hoods try to pull it downwards in the opposite direction. As a result, smoke hovers around the cook's face, and the strong airflow causes the gas flame to tilt, resulting in uneven cooking, no matter how carefully you watch the stove. I once worked with a family who insisted on this option because they wanted to cook while watching their children play in the living room. After the installation, they called back complaining that the whole house was constantly permeated with the smell of grease, even with the range hood running at full power every time they cooked. If asked for my opinion from the start, my usual solution is to put the sink on the kitchen island instead of the stovetop, because the time spent preparing and washing vegetables takes up 70% of your time in the kitchen, significantly more than the actual cooking time. If the family still insists on the stovetop on the island, remember this formula. For every 10,000 BTU of gas stove power, you need at least 100 CFM of exhaust power. And if the exhaust exceeds 400 cubic feet per minute, you absolutely must install a compensating air supply system. Otherwise, the pressure inside the house will become negative, drawing back exhaust fumes from the heater or water heater into the very kitchen where you cook every day. This is no longer about aesthetics but about the safety of the whole family. If the family still prefers the feeling of a completely open kitchen without the obstruction of a range hood, go ahead and do it. Just make sure to calculate the correct power and compensating air supply from the beginning. Don't wait until after installation to call a technician back for repairs. There is one thing that makes many homeowners regret their spending after just 6 months, right on the countertop they just laid. 2. Beautiful but high-maintenance materials. Natural materials always win in handover photos. Marble, soapstone, solid wood, raw brass. Everything looks stunning under the studio lights. But that photo only captures a single moment, while you'll be living with that countertop for the next 20 years, along with grease, sauces, and spilled drinks every day. Marble, by its very nature, is limestone and reacts very quickly to anything acidic. Lemon juice, vinegar, and tomato sauce will leave a permanent circular stain within minutes of contact, a phenomenon known as acid etching, and it's permanent, not temporary. Unpolished raw brass is different. Initially, it shines like gold, but after just a few weeks of constant contact, the natural oils cause the surface to oxidize, resulting in patchy discoloration. Solid wood isn't much better. Knife marks, water stains, and minor burn marks, if someone accidentally places a hot pot on it, all accumulate over the years. I don't hate these materials. On the contrary, I love their soulful beauty. But before a client puts down a deposit, I always ask them, do you see each scratch as a story worth keeping, or will you be annoyed every time you see it? The answer determines everything. If it's the latter, then artificial quartz, stainless steel, or tempered glass are what you need. They're almost completely acid-resistant, easy to clean with a damp cloth, and require no regular maintenance. The kitchen is where you use it every day, not a showroom just for photos. Choosing the right material to suit your lifestyle is far more important than choosing the most luxurious item in the catalog. And if you're still so in love with marble that you're willing to compromise, go ahead. Just be prepared for more thorough cleaning, and don't leave wine glasses overnight on the countertop. 3. Outlets ruining the backsplash tile. Spending several $1,000s to tile an entire artistic backsplash, only to have a square white plastic block cut right through the middle of the pattern, is something I see so often it no longer surprises me. Electricians often install outlets out of old habit. Vertical, in the middle of the wall, about 18 inches high from the stone surface, without anyone stopping to ask if the expensive tile behind it will be cut awkwardly. The problem is that most beautiful backsplash designs rely on the continuity of the veins or patterns. With an outlet sitting prominently in the middle, the human eye will be pulled straight to that ugly plastic box before it can notice the beauty of the whole wall. I once saw a client spend a fortune on book-matched marble, but the electrician placed exactly 3 outlets right in the middle of the most beautiful vein. As a result, the effort of selecting the stone was wasted. The simplest solution is to rotate the outlets horizontally instead of vertically, then lower them close to the countertop or push them up against the bottom of the upper cabinets, where the eyes rarely glance. If the budget allows, a plug strip system hidden entirely under the upper cabinets is the cleanest choice. However, this type should only be used for mobile devices like hand blenders, while coffee makers or toasters kept in a fixed spot still need a standard outlet near the counter to avoid black cords hanging down all day. For islands, I always suggest using pop-up floor or counter outlets that emerge when needed. They are much neater and safer than side-mounted island outlets, where children can easily mess with cords and pull a pot of boiling water down on themselves. Those who are not too picky about an outlet being a few inches off from the tile pattern can let the contractor install it the traditional way. Just know in advance that your eyes will see it every day. If your kitchen becomes so cramped that no one dares to enter at the same time whenever guests visit, this is why. 4. Kitchen aisles are too narrow. On weekends when the family gathers, you will see this problem most clearly. 2 people are in the kitchen. One opens the oven door, the other is carrying a pot of hot soup passing by, and they collide right in the middle of a narrow aisle less than a meter wide. This isn't personal clumsiness. It's the result of a design that prioritizes island size over actual movement space. Many blueprints I've reviewed try to stuff in an island that is too big and grand, then squeeze the distance between 2 parallel cabinet systems down to less than 36 inches. It sounds insignificant, but the minimum standard must reach 42 inches to allow one person to fully open an oven or dishwasher door, while another person can still squeeze past. If the house frequently hosts large gatherings, it should be pushed to 48 inches for comfort. That is the distance between 2 facing cabinet systems. The specific distance from the kitchen island to the wall or dining table behind it is another number. It needs at least 44 to 48 inches. A shortage here means someone will be stuck between the island and the wall every day. Island seating is also often miscalculated. Each seat needs a minimum width of 24 inches for a quick breakfast and 30 inches if used as a primary dinner table. The stone countertop must overhang the base cabinet by at least 15 inches for knee room. Without this overhang, no matter how beautiful the stool is, it will be uncomfortable to sit on. Before signing a contract with a contractor, I always advise clients to take a tape measure and stand exactly where the island is planned, manually imagining opening the oven and cabinet doors to see if someone can still pass by. This is better than trusting a drawing on paper and regretting it once the cabinets are installed. 5. Removing the toe kick. Do you notice your toes aching every time you stand close to the sink? Most likely, it's not because you're clumsy, but because the designer removed the small space at the bottom of the cabinet, what those in the trade call a toe kick, just because they wanted the cabinets to look flush to the floor for a minimalist style. That space is usually about 3 to 4 inches deep and 4 inches high. It looks like nothing, but it allows your feet to tuck underneath when you stand close to the counter to wash vegetables or chop food. Without that space, your toes hit the cabinet door, pushing your body back a few inches and forcing you to lean and hunch your back forward to reach the countertop. Standing to cook for a few minutes is fine, but repeating that posture every day for years makes the lumbar spine the first place to suffer the consequences. Another detail often overlooked is the junction between the backsplash and the lower countertop. Many contractors let the tile run all the way to the edge of the stone, regardless of where the upper cabinet above it ends, creating a lonely tile corner in the middle of a blank wall. Those in the trade jokingly call it an orphan tile corner. Looking at it, you know someone skipped the final measurement step. For every project, I keep this rule. Never remove the toe kick, no matter how much the homeowner likes the minimalist style. Spinal health is much more important than a few centimeters of a flatter look. As for the backsplash line, the simple rule is that the tile must end flush with the outside edge of the upper cabinet, creating a straight, continuous line from top to bottom, rather than running erratically according to the contractor's whim during construction. Have you ever stood in the middle of the kitchen, arms full of a heavy bag of vegetables, eyes scanning for a place to set it down but finding nothing? There is a very specific reason behind that. 6. The refrigerator is pushed to the edge of the kitchen. Hiding the refrigerator in a dark corner, using wood panels to match the cabinets so it disappears completely from sight, is a trend I see more and more in recent designs. It looks so seamless you can't even tell where the fridge is. Visually, it is beautiful, but from the perspective of someone who actually cooks every day, this is a decision that causes significant annoyance. The work triangle principle has existed in the kitchen design industry for decades for a very simple reason. The 3 points, fridge, sink, and cooktop, need to be close to each other so the cook doesn't have to run back and forth too much while preparing a meal. The distance between each pair of points should range from 4 to 9 feet, and the total perimeter of the triangle should not exceed 26 feet. When the fridge is pushed to a far corner, separate from the main prep area, the cook is forced to take extra steps every time they need an ingredient. If carrying a stack of plates or a heavy bag of vegetables, the chance of dropping and breaking things along the way increases significantly. Another small detail often missed is the landing space right next to the fridge. Many families place the fridge right against a wall or a decorative cabinet system without leaving any countertop space next to it. As a result, every time you take something heavy out of the fridge, there is nowhere to temporarily set it down before moving it further. You end up carrying it the whole distance, making it easy to slip and drop. I usually arrange the fridge near the sink according to actual usage sequence. Take ingredients out, wash them immediately at the sink, and then move them to the prep area. The prep counter next to the sink should be at least 36 inches wide, enough space to chop vegetables and marinate meat without feeling cramped. Most importantly, always leave at least 12 to 24 inches of empty countertop right next to the fridge, enough to temporarily place a heavy bag of groceries before putting it away. This small detail alone significantly reduces the occurrence of dropping and breaking things in the kitchen every week. 7. Island pendants at the wrong level. Pendant lights over the island are one of the easiest decorative items to buy and also the easiest to install incorrectly. People go to the store and buy whatever style catches their eye, and the electrician hangs them based on gut feeling. Only after it's done do they discover the husband and wife sitting on opposite sides of the island can no longer see each other's faces. Between them are 3 large lampshades blocking their line of sight. There is a fairly clear standard for hanging height that very few people know to ask the contractor for. From the island countertop up to the bottom of the light should be about 30 to 36 inches. Hanging lower blocks the view, hanging higher dilutes the light, making it insufficient to see the counter clearly when chopping vegetables at night. The lights also need to be set back from the outer edge of the island by at least 6 to 12 inches. Without this setback, anyone standing up suddenly is very likely to hit their head on the light, something I once witnessed at an old client's family party. The distance between the lights is equally noteworthy. If placed too close together, the light overlaps and creates confusing shadows on the counter. If placed too far apart, there is a distinct dark gap between the 2 lights. The ideal level is usually 24 to 30 inches between the centers of 2 adjacent lights, depending on the actual length of the island. Specifically, if the kitchen ceiling is lower than 8 feet, I always make this clear to clients from the start. Do not try to hang large metal or fabric shades. It will make an already low ceiling feel even more oppressive, creating an unnecessary sense of suffocation. In that case, I usually switch to recessed lighting, or if they still want the pendant look, I choose a completely transparent glass body. The light still provides a focal point without obstructing the view at all. There are 3 small items in the kitchen that, if placed incorrectly relative to each other, are enough to turn clearing the table into a military march. 8. Fragmented layout of the cleaning area. The sink, dishwasher, and trash can should work as a seamless assembly, but I see too many designs that separate them as if the 3 items were unrelated. The dishwasher is crammed at one end of the kitchen, the trash can hidden in a far-off corner cabinet, resulting in you having to shuttle back and forth every time you finish clearing the table, carrying stacks of dirty dishes, and dodging children running around on the floor. The problem is even worse when the dishwasher is placed perpendicular to the sink instead of right next to it. Every time you open the door to load dishes, the door swings open, blocking the way at the sink, forcing the person rinsing dishes to move aside or wait for the door to close before continuing. Not to mention the water and food scraps dripping all the way between the sink and the machine, leaving the floor constantly damp after every meal. I call this principle the closed loop. The dishwasher should be right next to the sink, within easy reach of no more than 3 feet, so that the emptying, rinsing, and loading process happens seamlessly in just a few steps. A pull-out trash can should be placed symmetrically to the dishwasher across the sink, or even better, integrated directly under the sink, so that removing leftover food before rinsing doesn't require any further steps. The clean dish cabinet should also be located directly above or next to the dishwasher, as this is the final point of the cycle, allowing you to retrieve and store clean dishes in seconds instead of having to carry a whole basket around the kitchen. 9. No place to hide small items. You've just finished brewing your morning coffee, and when you turn around, you see a whole row of appliances cluttering the countertop. A blender, an air fryer, and a toaster, each occupying a corner, their wires tangled like a ball of yarn. This isn't because the homeowner is lazy, it's simply that the kitchen never had any other place to store them. The problem lies in the initial design, not in lifestyle habits. Many blueprints only consider cabinets for dishes and cookware, forgetting that every modern family owns at least 5 or 6 small appliances, each requiring its own power outlet when in use. Without dedicated storage, everything is left exposed, turning the expensive countertop into a display area for electrical appliances rather than a place for cooking. My solution is to dedicate a separate compartment called an appliance garage, placed directly on the countertop at eye level, with a roll-up or sliding door to close when not in use. The built-in power outlets allow you to leave appliances inside. You just pull up the door when you need to use them and close it when you're finished, keeping the kitchen counter always clean and uncluttered. There's another space that few people notice, the storage for cutting boards and baking trays. Stacking them in a regular drawer only makes them prone to scratches and difficult to access when needed. I usually add a small drawer with vertical dividers to keep the wooden cutting board, baking tray, and large serving plates neatly arranged side by side like books on a shelf. They can be retrieved in seconds without touching other items. There is a type of kitchen cabinet that seems harmless, but the way it is opened every day is exactly what I most often remind clients to pay attention to. 10. Lower cabinets with only swing doors. On price lists, hinged cabinets are always significantly cheaper than drawer-sliding cabinets. And that's precisely why this type of cabinet is so common in most standard budget kitchens. But that price difference doesn't disappear. It just transfers from the contractor's bill to your spine and knees. Every time you need to retrieve a large pot or deep pan stored deep inside, you're forced to kneel, bend over, and grope around in the dark because the light from above doesn't reach the bottom of the cabinet. For the elderly or those with knee problems, this daily repetition becomes a real obstacle, not a minor issue. The deepest part of a hinged cabinet is almost never used, becoming a forgotten storage space, sometimes untouched for an entire year. I often give a simple calculation to customers who are hesitant. 80% of the space deep inside a standard hinged cabinet is practically wasted because people are too lazy to bend down to retrieve items, while drawers utilize almost all of that space by pulling straight out into the light. My advice is to convert as many lower cabinets as possible to heavy-duty drawers, using high-quality concealed slides that can support dozens of pounds while still sliding smoothly. The initial cost is higher than hinged doors, but over decades of use, that difference is negligible compared to maintaining healthy backs and knees and avoiding having to rummage through the entire cabinet to find the pot you need. If a tight budget forces you to choose hinged doors for some cabinet compartments, that's fine too. Just prioritize drawers for the compartments you use most frequently. A beautiful kitchen in a picture and a kitchen that's easy to cook in every day are two completely different things. Taking the time to thoroughly inspect it before signing a contract is always cheaper than having to fix it after a few years of living in it. Which of these 10 kitchen problems is yours? Tell me in the comments.